Valley is well known for its being geologically active, with volcanoes, hot springs, geysers, and frequent earthquakes. The East African Rift has two main branches, the Western Rift and the Gregory Rift. These two rift valleys are dotted by volcanoes, from the Erta Ale in Ethiopia to Mount Kenya in Kenya, although it is now an extinct stratovolcano. Other spotted volcanoes include Olduvai Lengai in Tanzania, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, which is a dormant stratovolcano, and Mount Nyiragongo in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Western Rift is also known as the Albertine Rift, or the Lake Albert Rift, and it contains the East African Great Lakes. The Western Rift is one of the most biodiverse areas in Africa. Its features include snow-capped mountains, savannas, highland forests, and a couple of exotic lakes. On the other hand, the Gregory Rift, named after the geologist who first mapped it, stretches from the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea downward to Mount Kilimanjaro. One of the most important features of the Gregory Rift is the Afar Triple Junction. The Afar Triple Junction is where the Horn of Africa straddles the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden in the Arabian Sea. At this junction, the Arabian Plate, Nubian Plate, and Somali Plate are all moving away from each other. What is noticeable is that the two arms of the Afar Triple Junction continue to widen through the process of seafloor spreading. One of the arms is extending into the Red Sea, and the other is extending into the Gulf of Aden. As these rifts continue, the tiny valley created by the Gregory Rift could get so depressed that the Arabian Sea floods it. If this happens, this new strait, the Horn of Africa, would become a continental island, just like Madagascar or New Zealand. An interesting thing to note about the East African Rift is that, although the same process developed both the Western and Gregory branches, they actually do have very different characters. In the Gregory Rift, what we see is greater volcanic activity, while the Western Rift has much deeper basins that have large lakes and plenty of sediments. One of these lakes is the Lake Tanganyika, which is the second deepest lake in the world. Another is the Lake Malawi. With basalt eruptions and active crevice formation being observed, geologists have recently had to observe the East African Rift system to see how ocean basins form on land. This is an exciting thing for scientists, as it gives them an opportunity to directly study how rifts work. This is an opportunity that they can't get anywhere else in the world, as most rifts have progressed till they are filled with sediments or are underwater. The East African Rift system, on the other hand, is an excellent field laboratory to study a modern, actively developing rift system. Lakes are also, many times, one of the features of a rift valley system. Rift lakes are formed when fresh water fills up a rift valley. An example of one such formation is when the North American plate began to rift over 1 billion years ago. As the rifting continued, a triple junction was formed right in the middle of the young continent, and a deep rift valley developed. Soon, and over the years, fresh water accumulated in this rift valley, and the result was the creation of a lake. However, the rift failed and was completed after many millions of years. The continent survived the rift, with the arms unable to break off to form a new ocean. Today, the remains of that ancient rift lake, Lake Superior, rest on top of one of the oldest and deepest rift valleys in the world. Another example of a rift lake is the Lake Baikal, the rift lake that is over the Baikal Rift Valley in Siberia. Lake Baikal is the deepest and oldest freshwater lake in the world. The deepest parts of this rift lake are around 5,387 feet. Additionally, layers of soft sediments have slowly been collected and deposited on the lake's bed over the past 25 million years ago. In fact, the actual floor of the Rift Valley is more than 3 miles deep. Lake Baikal also holds the record for the largest volume of fresh water in the world, with the volume coming in at a massive 5,700 cubic miles. Another example of a rift lake formation is the Dead Sea in the Jordan Rift Valley. While the Dead Sea is not the world's deepest lake, the depth of the Jordan Rift easily makes it the lowest land elevation in the world. The surface of the Dead Sea is 1,407 feet below sea level, while the lake still goes about 997 feet deep into the ground. However, in contrast to Lake Baikal, the Dead Sea is not a true rift lake. as the rift underneath it did not fully form it. What we have here is the so-called Dead Sea Transform. This is a geologically complex area where tectonic plates interact in many ways. Some of the world's most famous rift lakes include the ones found in the rift valleys in the East African Rift, simply referred to as the Rift Valley Lakes. These lakes stretch from Ethiopia to Malawi. These lakes are known to be sites with incredible biodiversity. The lakes present here include freshwater lakes like Lake Baikal, as well as saltwater soda lakes similar to the Dead Sea. These Rift Valley lakes is Lake Tanganyika. It is a lake that shares its shores along the coastlines of Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, and Zambia. It is also home to hundreds of endemic species of cichlid fish, like many other freshwater Rift Valley lakes. On the other hand, Lake Natron in Tanzania is one of the shallow, alkali-rich soda lakes of the East African Rift. It has a beautiful red color due to the pink salt-loving bacteria that live in the salty water and not the geology of its rocks. Another lake worthy of note is Lake Malawi. Also called Lake Nyasa or Lake Nyasa, it is the third deepest freshwater lake in the world. Lake Malawi lies in the southern end of the western arm of the East African Rift Valley. Its basin is densely populated and has a high prevalence of waterborne diseases. With about 800 to 1,000 fish species, it also has the richest fish species of any lake in the world. As the East African Rift continues down its path of dividing Africa, the region has grown in its perceived importance to all stakeholders. From geologists to ecologists and the government, everyone is keeping tabs on what is going on in the Rift Valley. It has gained a level of importance for understanding how human evolution played out in the past. There have been many hominid fossils discoveries with the rift, and it has been nicknamed the cradle of humanity. With many paleoanthropological discoveries, scientists are currently thinking about how the rift's evolution might have played a major role in our development as a species. Some of these discoveries include Lucy, a hominin skeleton unearthed in Ethiopia that is over 3 million years old. There also is the Turkana boy, an almost 2 million years old hominin skeleton discovered in Kenya. Many experts believe that the structure and evolution of the East African Rift led to the creation of an environment that was ideal for the proliferation of life. Also, the presence of a rift would have made East Africa more sensitive to climate change. This would have led to alterations between wet and dry seasons. This pressure from the environment could have helped drive our ancestors to become bipedal and brainier as they sought to adapt to these climatic changes. The East African Rift System is a complex system of rift segments that help us understand how continents break apart and oceans form. But it is also much more than that. The East African Rift Valley is also a potential power source due to the volume of volcanic and tectonic activities going on there. In fact, the United Nations Environment Program is currently working on a geothermal energy program that would take advantage of this. The planned program would convert the heat created by the Rift Valley's underground activity into electricity through a series of steam wells. According to estimates, a single well would have the capacity to produce enough power for 5,700 homes. If successful, this program would provide a sustainable energy source for millions of people, many of whom do not have access to electricity today. While this is a good thing, the very same volcanic and tectonic changes have been known to cause undesirable situations for people in the region, with a rising water level the least of their problems. With oil discovered around one of the lakes, there might be another chapter in the story of Africa's division by land mass. The intense malnutrition and poverty level of the people living in the regions, coupled with the unpredictability of an active rift, with all its volcanic and tectonic irregularities, lie in contrast to the excitement of scientists. While Africa might not split into two or more in our lifetime, the East African Rift will be one of the most important things to shape our futures in the decades and centuries to come. Thanks for watching another episode of Voyager. While you're still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more mind-blowing videos about space.